name is Jamie Kwong. I'm a resident of the Vanier area in Ottawa. I came here about 17 years ago from Brampton, Ontario, outside of Toronto. Currently, I'm the executive director of the Ottawa Music Industry Coalition, OMIC, and it's a nonprofit that works to support artists and music professionals to ensure that Ottawa is a thriving music city so that we can build talent here and export it, but also make it so that they can make their livings here in the music industry. So that's me. In Canada has had a fractured history with Asians. There was a Chinese head tax that basically brought Asian men over and didn't allow them to bring their families or wives, but they also weren't allowed to get married to others that were here. So there's been laws that were interfering with people's quality of life just because that they were Chinese or something like that. So currently, right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic, a global pandemic, COVID-19. It originated in China, and so there's been a lot of anti-Asian sentiment because of that. There's been a lot of racism towards Asian groups, blaming them for this global pandemic, and it's been unfortunate. And you see it happen in Ottawa. It made the news in Vancouver, in Toronto. Personally, I've experienced a few incidents of racism where someone would yell something super racist or say really offensive things to me just because of my race. And so it's been less overt, though, I find, with me. I think being a person of color, the racism is more systemic, and so there are things that happen in our society that don't allow opportunities for everybody, and it might not be blatant racism necessarily sometimes, but it might be something like how people hire, how people screen out people who send in resumes with names that aren't something they're familiar with. So for things like that, I think that is tougher to challenge than the explicit racism sometimes. And so, yeah, being Asian, being Canadian, yes, there's been definitely experiences of racism against Asian communities, for sure. I think that sometimes there are cliches, like you said, or stereotypes or assumptions based on people's race, based on people's gender, abilities, things like that, that are detrimental. And if we're just looking at race, I think for Asians, it's weird because we've been seen as that model minority where the stereotypes towards us are things like hardworking, smart at math, bad drivers, for example. None of this stuff it's all very problematic, but it's definitely not in the same level of what Black communities are going through, where stereotypes around groups that create and that creates a situation where Black communities feel that they're more under threat from police based on assumptions about their race. I think for Asians, I think for anyone, stereotypes are problematic. It makes you think that you know somebody, but you don't, and you treat them differently based on this assumption, which is usually inaccurate. And so right off the bat, you're not having an authentic connection with the person, and you're basing it on a judgment, a stereotype, and it's often coming from a place of ignorance. And some of the ones that I experience are laced with sexism too. So Asians are docile, Asians are submissive, are obedient. These are all really problematic when you're having interactions with males who want to know you because of that. And when you show them you're a strong person with your own ideas, your own opinions, and that you have your own convictions and stand up for it, that's a threat to them. And so that can potentially put people in risky or dangerous situations, right? When they feel they can't control you, and they feel that they base that assumption that you are controllable, and it makes a situation that could be potentially dangerous. And so there are stereotypes there that are like racism, sexism, they all intertwine, and it doesn't paint an accurate picture of anyone. Absolutely. I think sometimes people commit microaggressions where they might say something that sounds like a compliment, but really it's something that has undertones of racism. And so it could be based on assumptions. So let's look at some of the ones that surround Asians, Asian women. So you're seen as, oh, you're exotic because you look different. Oh, you're Asian, you must be very docile, you must want to make men happy, you must be very obedient and hardworking, and all of that creates this image of this doll-like person. And when you do that, you take away their power, and you feel that that they're an object, and that does nothing beneficial for the community, for women, for Asian women. And so oftentimes I get weird, harassing kind of messages like that, where people, men, they say things like that. Oh, you're Asian. Oh, you must be so exotic. Oh, like they turn you into something that's sexualized, and you're having a business conversation with them. And so they're not valuing you as an individual with an intellect. And so that's harassment. And so I think that's been my experience, is how racism and sexism intertwine to be something that's incredibly uncomfortable, and in navigating community life, but also the business sphere, and even personal life, because of these type of stereotypes that are sexist and racist. So I think looking to kids, they are the next generation, and so there's hope there, right? And I think with kids, they're naturally inherently not racist, they're not sexist. They learn all these things because of what adults are saying or what adults are doing. And so we as role models have to find ways to model healthy behaviors and show how to treat people with respect, with equality, treat everybody based on their character, how kind people are, how people make them feel, and not based on their looks, assumptions about their looks, assumptions about their race, assumptions about their socio-demographic background. And so I think, I remember when I was a kid, I had friends who were of all different backgrounds. Having grown up in Brampton, it was a huge population of Southeast Asian, but also I had a best friend who was Trinidadian, and I remember we would switch food, and we were grade 2, and I had the best roti because of her, and she also had home-cooked Chinese food. And so I think as kids, we're open-minded more, and then as we become adults, we somehow close off to certain ideas, or we become stuck with stereotypes or assumptions. There's so many maybe decisions to be made that sometimes people don't want to be as critical of their thought processes or their what kind of things that they've learned, and not all of the things that you learn is good. And I think as adults, we have to unpack a lot of that, unpack the racism that we see every day, not contribute to it, and also help towards ending it. So challenging when we see things that aren't healthy. And when kids see that, when kids see adults standing up for people who are not treated fairly, they will learn what's right. And so I think as adults, the best thing we can do is work on ourselves, improve how we interact with the world and people, and raise everybody up, and pass that down to kids. And then I think we have hope in the next generation.